Da 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 da. Good day, internets. Good day, campers. So, this is part 3. Why is this part 3? Because I did a part 1 and a part 2, but they weren't really parts. They were just kind of standalone efforts. This is a kind of a summation of my efforts on how to get OBS working with a big piece of audio interface gear. I have a Focusrite 18i20 and multiple microphones and desktop audio with games, and having that all route correctly and be easy to use and configurable and yada, yada, yada. So let's get with it. So first thing I'm going to do is we'll go live and I will show you a desktop. And here is a camera up in the top right corner running at a very low frame rate. Here is just off camera. Oh my goodness, just off camera is a microphone. And over here is another microphone. And down here in the corner is a Focusrite 18i20. It has many outputs, 16, 20, something like that. Many inputs. It outputs to your PC via USB ASIO only. It doesn't have any kind of Windows desktop capability. So to use it as a microphone source and a guitar source and a bass source and have any of those things go live to your stream as well as the game, it requires a little bit of legerdemain, little sleight of hand. And as I have mentioned in previous tutorials of this nature on this topic, this is the best solution. Deus ASIO Link Pro, device driver made by a company down in Australia, is, and I'll make sure I put a link in the thing in the bottom description. That is the solution. Now, how does it work? Well, it works in 2 parts. Part 1 is the drivers. It's essentially a device driver. It's a thing that makes hardware work. What it's doing is it's intercepting that signal from the USB cable, and it is providing a mapping between those ASIO inputs from the device coming into your computer, and allows you to do stuff in between before it's sent out to the computer's audio. That's the best way to put it. And it does it fantastically. I'm a big fan. It's taken me actually quite a while to get more and more comfortable, because every time the computer shuts down, it gets all messed up when it comes back online. And if I don't set things up just right, it goes all wobbly on me. Okay. It has some settings: ASIO sample rate preferred, buffer size preferred, ASIO channels, so many in, so many out. I can change that. I've just left it as 16 in, 16 out. I probably should map that to be correct to my device. I haven't bothered. At this point, that thing says that it has to start, but that doesn't make any sense because it's already running. I'm going to shut that window down and bring up the one that's already running. Uh-oh. Oh my God, I've got like multiple windows here. I'm going to close that one, and everything should still work. Yes, okay, this is the one that was started. You can have multiple instances of those to launch extra things. Oh, it's still running. Okay, whatever. So, the first one is my desktop setup. This one is when you first run this and you bring up the ASIO control panel. I'll get that in a second. It has, once it has started, it has 2 buttons, initialize and start. Initialize will just kind of bring up this window and allow you to do your routing. Start actually kickstarts the whole thing. The first piece is pick driver. Now I've covered this before. You have to select the ASIO driver that you're using for your device. In this particular case, I am using a Focusrite USB audio driver. That's great. You make sure it matches your audio interface. Next is this enable multi-clients. You want that enabled. If it is not enabled, then you will have problems. I'll try to explain why that is, but that is absolutely necessary. There was another tutorial out in the universe that says that you shouldn't have it on, but you really must have it. The unregister button will be, if you just download this device driver without paying for it, it will blank the audio once a minute. So since that's no fun, you pay the unfortunate price of like $50, which solves all the problems. And then that little pause goes away. Next, whatever routing you do in here is saved under profiles. You can have a whole 8 profiles for some reason. I only need 1. Once you've wired this thing up, you want to hit save just so that it's saved. Now, the third piece of this, of course, is that you are a gamer and you're going to want to stream stuff. So we're going to put this on here. And then lastly, you have a Windows computer here. And so we have the Windows control panel. Those are our 4 characters in our little play. What the device driver does is it adds by default, and it has different settings. So you can have even more, but the defaults is pretty intense already. Is it adds 4 speaker output devices, whereas normally you only have 1. Now, I have hidden all of the ones that I don't use, like here, speakers, Realtek high definition audio speakers. So this would be the regular speaker jack at the back of your computer. You would plug stuff into that. Maybe it's 4.1 or whatever. You got 2, or it's like surround, 2 front, 2 back. And that has nothing to do with anything. I don't use those. I can't even right now, still can't figure out how I could use them because the Windows machine doesn't allow you to continue to route audio around. It basically thinks of speakers as the final destination. Now, in my case, I use my audio interface for listening to music. I might as well use it for doing the digital to analog conversion to put back into my ears. So I don't let the computer do anything in that regards. And I think that saves me a couple CPU cycles on audio processing anyways. So here we have already a setting that I should have set up previously correctly. And I don't know if I can change it and keep my stream running. So darn it, I've blown it already, but I'll try. So you'll notice that I've got wires running. These are green lines are wires. Imagine them as patch cables. Each of this block of 8, 1, 2 to 8, 1 to 8, 1 to 8, represents 8 channel surround sound speakers. Okay? Left, right, center, or side, or center, side, back, bass, that type of thing. The computer, almost all audio on a Windows computer, nobody writes surround sound software for anybody. No game is written in that way. So it'll be just left, right. Invariably, you'll just set your computer up to say that's the kind of audio you're using anyways. What I do is speakers 1, speakers, and now this is actually the computer. What would otherwise be going straight to speakers and plugged into your actual speakers actually arrives here at the top. And then once it goes out down to the bottom, that's the actual speakers out. And it gives you an opportunity to play silly buggers in the middle. And what I want to do is I want any computer audio that, for whatever reason, due to legacy reasons, that somebody didn't enumerate all of the type of output devices you have on your computer, or which one was the default or whatever. If it assumed the first speaker, then I have this as a safety guard. Route left and right, number 1 and number 2, over, and this is an arbitrary decision, to channel 9 and 10 of the ASIO drivers out mix. So this is like the line just before we actually send it to the speakers. So it's just like a kind of a staging ground, if you will. Whereas, so speakers 1, so that's like a legacy thing. And then you'll notice here I have left and right, 1 and 2, of the speaker 3 input. Now I goofed. I didn't actually set this one as my default device, which is what I should do. I could try doing this. It will probably screw the whole stream up, so I'm not going to. We'll just go with this, and then I'll probably try it right at the very end once I've explained anything. But basically, right here, I would set speaker 3 as my default device, and I would leave speakers 1 as my default communication device. That is for Skype or any other chat thingy. My headset, so to speak, my microphone will go there. Now the reason, so the way this works, default legacy speaker 1 audio is routed over to channel 9 and 10, staging ground. Left and right of speaker 3, the default speakers, routes down to 9 and 10. And then that 9 and 10, that happy left and right mix, routes to speaker 3, left and right. And that's where all the audio would happen. That's where your audio out occurs. That channel is your desktop audio. And now I'll just keep on the same channel or same line of thought. You'll notice down here, and I can't zoom in on it, but on OBS, I have mic aux 1, and that's one I'm talking on presently, and I have mic aux 2, auxiliary 2. That is the desktop audio, and that's what you would normally hear for game audio. So game stuff would come through here, and that is achieved by clicking the settings, going to audio, and I have it specified that the mic auxiliary audio device, the first one, is mix 1. And what that normally would be is only my microphone mix goes to device 1. And the mic auxiliary device 2 is mix 3, speakers 3. Then I have a hotkey assigned to mute, unmute mix 1 and a hotkey to mute, unmute mix 2. That allows me to mute my microphone or mute game. If the game volume is too loud and I just want to talk to somebody, or the music or whatever background computer audio is going on, I can mute that and just use the mic, or I can mute everything. You know, you can play around. I haven't bothered being more fancy and wiring up. Here's the thing, I just selected these auxiliary devices, the mic devices, because that was straightforward and clear to me. The desktop audio devices, I just didn't do it that way. I wanted it to be clear in that way. So I suspect you could route other audio devices in using those things, but I didn't bother. You could play around with those and see which one you actually want to be specified as this thing. All it does is just creates an entry in the hotkeys to allow you to mute, unmute, push to mute, push to talk. What you could do is you could probably have even more microphones. You could have another desktop microphone that's routed to a specific submix, and you could have a guest microphone that you key or something like that. If you're doing interviews or webcasts like that, you could probably wire in another mix so that you have a separate mute control. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The goal is to have game audio and computer audio on one channel, microphones and special effects, etc., blah, 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 on 2. All of this is just the primary desktop audio setup. Now you're seeing my voice is bouncing around on this 1 and 2 and down here. If speakers 3 was default, I would be bouncing around on 9 and 10, 1 and 2. Okay, so just ignore that. The reason 1 and 2 is routed over to here, though, is so that I can hear it in my on my Focusrite, because the Focusrite or any audio interface uses ASIO driver outs back to it. That's its inputs. So what I'm doing is, I mean, I'm not actually monitoring channel 9 and 10 on my computer, on my my apologies, my brain is fuzzing out here. I'm not actually monitoring those two because it only listens to the microphones on its device. Those are its inputs, and it's listening back for its own outputs, I think. I'm not sure. Anyways, so the fifth piece of this puzzle, and I'm sure every audio interface has its own controller. This is the Focusrite's, the Scarlett's mix controller. So my microphone here is channel 1. I have a guitar in channel 2, another microphone, and then I have another microphone in channel 3. I have a bass guitar in channel 4. I actually don't want these faders to send this signal to my audio interface master. Otherwise, I would hear it twice in my ears, one without latency and one going through the computer and coming back with latency, or there'd just be latency issues. So I don't do that. It's just a monitoring mix. So this is all set up. This one bouncing away here, that's the computer audio coming back from Windows. Okay. Lastly, recording. I'm only ever using Mix 1 for recording. Everything just records from one. This is the send mix to the. So that's the stereo send. That's how we record. So that's why there's this. This is from the DAW, which is a Windows. So it only has a stereo out for this purpose as a generic mix out. Obviously, a DAW can export its mix to any kind of format you want, but to Windows, it only sends a stereo mix. Now, that's a whole bunch of pieces here, but I do have a DAW, and the DAW that I use is Fruity Loops FL Studio. And so now this should have taken over. I'll just get that off the screen. So here I am in this thing. And I just have to, I'll bring this up so I can get my thing here. This thing is, so you'll actually, I guess I should show you both of these at the same time. This is the desktop's routing for OBS. This is the DAW's routing for Fruity Loops. In Fruity Loops, it does not have an enable multi-clients because the first one has enable. This one has route to ASIO in. I have played with that and everything goes for hell in a handbasket. So don't, just don't do it. Or do it, I don't care. And so what happens here is a little bit wobbly. The drivers in from the device to the channels will always end up being blank until you go to your mixer and you actually assign channels. So if I assigned channel 5 and I made it map to input 5, then blink, I get another input 5. These things have their own, I'm going to get rid of that off the screen. Obviously in the DAW, you have now a mixer with its own routing rules. So I have, my vocal mic here is routed to a monitor mix where I can add reverb and sound all amazing. And the same thing goes for the guitar mixes. So using these tools and using the DAW, I can add all sorts of crazy effects and have the fun of my, my voice. I can add some stereo awesomeness and make my sound like some late night radio host. Okay, so these are all routed to monitor. Monitor is output to link out 1 and 2, which is the stereo out. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-boom. That is routed to speaker 1. See? Everything is beautiful. Everything else is routed to default, which happens to be 1 because I screwed up and I didn't make it 1. But this one would all be going to 1 default communications device. If I was using Skype, this is how I would be talking to Skype or TeamSpeak or Mumble or blah, 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 whatever. This is my voice channel, and desktop audio does not go to my to those devices. So you could have your music playing in your headphones, talking on the phone or to somebody on Skype. They wouldn't hear this. They wouldn't even hear the game you're playing unless you have, like I do, a really old IBM Type M clackety-clack keyboard. So the routing is straightforward here. Left and right to left and right. If this mix here, if I had a more complicated mix, if like this monitor went to 1 and 2 and another one went to, if I created a surround sound mix out of this, then I could probably wire up something here from the DAW to that. And then you save this whole setup as your default setup. As I have done, I've saved this as my default. So whenever I fire up, I have all these channels live. And then they automatically wire themselves up because the channels are already assigned to the appropriate inputs. So like vocals is link in 1, guitar 2, 3, 4, and all I did was I just messed around and made sure that the channel numbers matched the input number by organizing them appropriately. So if you don't do everything in perfect order, it will all get screwed up, I guess is one of the near last things I'm going to say about this. When you boot up your computer, it gets turned on after an update or a restart or a power outage or anything like that, the first thing you have to do, I'm just going to minimize Fruity. The first thing you have to do is click on the link tool. Not that one. The first thing you have to do is click on the link tool, start ASIO, which will get you your primary link. You don't have to use what I've done here. I wanted them to be separate, and I wanted them to be like 8 channels away. So that's why I didn't want the lines to be on top of each other. I wanted them spread out so I could see them easier. I think that's it. I think I've explained this, and I think I understand it now. When you fire it up, you load this one first. You click the Win control panel, and you fix this. This doesn't save for some reason. Every single time you restart your computer, the mixes get mixed up, and then you forget, and you're going to go, oh, crap. So I don't have a solution to that. I wish I could. I wish I didn't have to manually change this every time, but I now realize I absolutely do. I won't be able to go online and play a game. OBS has no recovery to losing audio devices or having them change out from underneath it. So if I were to change this, OBS would just go deaf, and it would stop processing the audio. I will probably do a test of that in a second after having first said, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I hope this was useful to you. If you like this, I don't want to say anything else. What the hell? If you have any questions about this or any comments, please comment. I'd love to hear from you. And other than that, sassafras out. And the addendum is, let's see what happens if I change Mix 3 and will this thing go deaf? Set as default. And then I'm just to test this, I will play a Windows sound. I'll just go asterisk. Yes, okay, so there it was. You saw how mic auxiliary 2 went bing, bing. And I'll show you back on here. If I go test, because it still thinks the default device is 1, it's routing over to, everything is working perfectly, but OBS is not. It's not picking up the fact that I have now changed the routing of desktop audio from speaker 1 to speaker 3. So although this works, basic desktop audio 1 and 2, it's actually being routed over to speaker 3, and it shows up over there. So that's it, everybody. Have a good day.